The SpaceX IPO could be a huge mistake. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and seeing the biggest financial headline of the year. SpaceX finally goes public. Within minutes, social media explodes. Financial news channels begin non-stop coverage. Investors rush to their brokerage accounts. Friends start texting each other. And millions of people who have been waiting for years finally get the opportunity they always wanted: to buy SpaceX stock. For many investors, this sounds like a dream. After all, SpaceX isn't just another company. It's one of the most exciting businesses ever created. The company launches rockets, works with NASA, operates one of the largest satellite networks in the world, and openly talks about sending humans to Mars. In many ways, SpaceX represents the future. And that's exactly why a future IPO could become dangerous. Because great companies don't always become great investments. In fact, some of the worst investment decisions in history involved buying incredible companies at terrible prices. Most investors assume that if a company succeeds, shareholders automatically win. But investing isn't that simple. Imagine someone offers you a house worth $300,000. If you buy it for $200,000, that's probably a fantastic deal. If you buy it for $3 million, that's probably a terrible deal. The house didn't change, only the price changed. Stocks work exactly the same way. A great company can become a bad investment when investors pay too much. And that's the first risk surrounding a future SpaceX IPO. The company is already so popular that investors may completely ignore valuation. Think about the position SpaceX is in today. Most companies spend years trying to convince investors that they're important. SpaceX has the opposite problem. Millions of people are already convinced. The company doesn't need to create excitement. The excitement already exists. For years, ordinary investors have watched private investors gain access to SpaceX while they remained locked out. That creates something powerful: anticipation. And the longer people wait for something, the more valuable they often believe it is. Psychologists call this scarcity. When something is difficult to access, people naturally want it more. And few investment opportunities have been more exclusive than SpaceX. As a result, demand could be enormous from day one. But scarcity isn't the only reason investors are obsessed with SpaceX. The second reason is Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, Musk has built one of the most impressive entrepreneurial track records of the modern era. Tesla transformed the electric vehicle industry. SpaceX transformed the launch industry. His companies have repeatedly achieved things experts once considered impossible. Because of that success, many investors automatically assume future success is guaranteed. That's understandable, but it can also be dangerous because investing requires skepticism, not negativity, not pessimism, skepticism. The willingness to ask difficult questions. What happens if growth slows? What happens if competition increases? What happens if expectations become unrealistic? Those questions matter because stock prices are based on the future, not the present. Investors aren't paying for what SpaceX is today. They're paying for what they believe SpaceX will become. And that distinction changes everything. The bigger the dream becomes, the higher expectations become. And the higher expectations become, the harder they are to satisfy. Imagine investors become convinced that SpaceX will eventually be worth $3 trillion. That's possible. But what if the company only becomes worth $1 trillion? That would still make it one of the most successful businesses in history. Yet investors who paid prices based on a $3 trillion future could still lose money. That's the trap. Success isn't enough. A company must exceed expectations, and expectations for SpaceX may already be among the highest in the world. Part of that excitement comes from rockets. Reusable rockets change the economics of space travel forever. Before SpaceX, rockets were typically used once and then discarded. Imagine buying a new airplane every time you took a flight. That's essentially how the industry worked. SpaceX changed that. By creating reusable rockets, the company dramatically reduced launch costs and transformed an entire industry. Today, SpaceX dominates global launch activity. It launches satellites, astronauts, cargo missions, and government payloads at a scale few companies can match. That's impressive. But many investors believe the real opportunity isn't rockets, it's Starlink. Starlink may ultimately become the most important piece of the SpaceX story. For those unfamiliar, Starlink is a satellite internet network designed to provide internet access around the globe. Unlike rocket launches, which occur periodically, internet subscriptions generate recurring revenue. Every month, every year, again and again. Wall Street loves recurring revenue. predictable income streams often receive much higher valuations than traditional industrial businesses. That's why some analysts believe Starlink could eventually become more valuable than the rocket business itself. And if that happens, investors may stop viewing SpaceX as an aerospace company. Instead, they may begin viewing it as a technology company. That matters because technology companies often trade at significantly higher valuations. The possibility is exciting, but excitement can create unrealistic assumptions. Investors begin pricing in perfect outcomes: perfect growth, perfect execution, perfect expansion, perfect profitability. History shows that's rarely how reality works. Even the greatest companies face obstacles. Competition emerges, regulations change, economic conditions shift, unexpected challenges appear. No company is immune, not even SpaceX. That's why investors should be careful about assuming the future will unfold exactly as planned. One of the biggest mistakes investors make is confusing possibility with certainty. Could SpaceX become one of the most valuable companies on Earth? Absolutely. Could Starlink become a dominant global communications platform? Possibly. Could the company continue revolutionizing the space industry? Very likely. But none of those outcomes are guaranteed, and that's what markets sometimes forget. The moment investors stop considering risk is often the moment risk becomes greatest. That's especially true during IPOs. Historically, some of the most anticipated IPOs generated enormous excitement. Investors rushed in, prices soared, expectations exploded, and then reality arrived. Sometimes the company succeeded, but the stocks disappointed. Not because the businesses failed, because investors paid too much. That's why valuation matters so much. At the end of the day, investing isn't about finding amazing companies. It's about finding amazing companies at reasonable prices. And if SpaceX eventually goes public, that may become the most important question investors need to answer. Not whether SpaceX is a great company. Most people already know it is. The real question is whether the stock will be worth the price investors are willing to pay. Because the biggest risk may not be SpaceX itself. The biggest risk may be investor psychology, fear of missing out, blind optimism, and the belief that a great company automatically guarantees a great investment. History suggests otherwise, and that's exactly why the SpaceX IPO could be a huge mistake for investors who fail to separate excitement from reality.